Thank you. Next, we are going to take a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Next up, we are going to move on to recognitions and celebrations, and this will be led by Executive Director Nuanez.
Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Davidson, fellow cabinet members, and esteemed guests, both here present and online. This is my favorite part of the governing board meeting. No offense to anybody, but I love to celebrate these young, amazing students. And tonight, we are proud to recognize Coach Taylor and the Wigwam Creek Middle School Girls Varsity Basketball Team and their hard-fought perfect 12-0 season and the championship victory over Madison. These outstanding student athletes displayed incredible hard work, perseverance, and teamwork, epitomizing what it means to be a Litchfield learner. Going undefeated is no small feat, and this team's dedication, discipline, and determination led them to an unforgettable season. Their success on the court is a testament to their commitment to excellence, both as athletes and as students. Thank you to our student athletes, their parents for joining us here tonight, and we honor and send a huge congratulations to our Jaguar champions on this remarkable achievement. Your school, and most of all, your district are incredibly proud of you. If I could have our team members come up to take a photo with us, please. Yeah, congratulations, Wigwam Creek, girls varsity basketball. All right, amazing. All right, we're going to move on to our second group to recognize and celebrate this evening. We are thrilled to recognize the incredible achievement of Andrea Lewis and the Palm Valley Elementary School Odyssey of the Mind team. This amazing team recently took first place in their competition. These outstanding Litchfield learners demonstrated innovation, creativity, and teamwork, embodying the very essence of what Odyssey of the Mind is all about. Odyssey of the Mind teaches students how to harness their natural creativity and become fearless problem solvers, whether it's thinking outside the box, developing original solutions, or presenting ideas with confidence. Odyssey of the Mind empowers students with skills that extend far beyond competition day. This international program fosters teamwork, budgeting, time management, public speaking, and critical thinking, all essential skills that will serve our students for a lifetime. Through their hard work and dedication, our Palm Valley team has not only embraced the challenges of Odyssey of the Mind, but has also set an inspiring example for our district. We are incredibly proud of their success and look forward to seeing where their creativity takes them next. Congratulations to Penny Bentz, Evan Rolls, Lincoln Guillen, Xander Gonzalez, Ella Tamblin, and the entire Palm Valley Thunderbird family. Congratulations. Go Thunderbirds! Don't go too far, Dr. Hill. We got more for you. All right. And on to our last group to celebrate tonight. This one always amazes me, these group of students. As a communication professional, I got into this because I prefer words over numbers. And so, this evening, it is with great pride that we recognize the incredible achievement of the Palm Valley Elementary School 5th and 6th grade Math Challenge team. These amazing students emerged as champions in a fierce competition against students from all across our district. These Litchfield learners showcased their exceptional problem-solving skills, critical thinking, and teamwork to secure the top spot. Mathematics is just more than numbers. It's about perseverance, strategy, and the confidence to tackle complex challenges. Our Palm Valley students embraced this mindset and demonstrated remarkable dedication in representing themselves, their school, and the entire district with pride. We celebrate Miss Sauter and her team members of Miles Fleming, Elizabeth Nichols, Emma Matthews, Rowan McFarland, Jackson George, and Jace Vallejo for your hard work, your commitment to excellence, and your passion for learning. Congratulations, Math Challenge champions. You have made Palm Valley Elementary and the entire LESD 79 family incredibly proud. Two plus two. 2 plus 2, yeah. Yes. All right, one more round of applause for all of our groups tonight. And thank you to our parents and students for joining us tonight.
Thank you guys that joined us for that. We love to celebrate our students, and it's great to be able to celebrate such a variety of things tonight. And we appreciate that you guys came out, and congratulations to all our student winners and all our athletes from Wigwam Creek as well. We are going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is public comment. Sorry, let me pull this up really quick. I was having some technical difficulties, but it seems to be working now. Okay, so for public comment, I'm just going to read this little disclaimer thing. Pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes, ARS 38-431.01H, this agenda item provides an open call to the public, allowing individuals to address the governing board on any issue within the jurisdiction of the board. Items not listed on the agenda may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Due to the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the governing board cannot discuss or take any action on items not listed on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, response to public comment about matters not appearing on the agenda will be limited to individual board members who may ask staff to study the matter, respond to any criticism, or ask that the matter be put on a future agenda for further consideration and decision at a later date. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes, and no more than 30 minutes will be devoted to the public comment portion of the agenda. When you approach the podium, please state your name for the record. You only have one speaker tonight. and it's Ms. Heidi Landon.
Good evening. Sorry, it wasn't. Hello, my name is Heidi Landon, and I have been a dedicated educator in this district for the past 14 years, and I currently teach at Dreaming Summit Elementary, where I have the privilege of serving our students and community. I am addressing you today very nervously on behalf of, I'm addressing you today to express my concerns about the proposed time change for our school in the upcoming academic year. While I am not formally representing all teachers, I would like to share my personal perspectives and concerns that I have heard expressed by many of my colleagues at Dreaming Summit. As someone directly affected by these potential changes, I believe it is important that my voices are considered in this decision. We understand that the scheduling changes involve complex considerations, and we appreciate the difficult work you do in governing our district. However, as the educators who will be directly impacted by this change, we believe our input is valuable to ensuring that any new schedule service serves the best interest of our educational community. As it would, of course, directly disrupt the family life and childcare of many teachers. The additional childcare cost, this is something that obviously is addressed with the community too, but when I'm talking specifically for teachers and how it affects the staff and the community of teachers in the district. And the possible career disruptions and possible professional impact is really where I'd like to specifically address it, where teachers forced to transfer schools lose years of established relationships with colleagues and administration. And we are fearing that we're being forced to do this because of the time change. It doesn't work with our families, and the fact that these teachers have been established at this school and this time for many, many years. The specialized knowledge of school culture, processes, and student population is lost when the teachers have to move. Curriculum planning and teaching materials developed specifically for current position may not transfer to a new school setting. Uncertainty about finding compatible or comparable positions at schools with compatible schedules. Having to interview and compete for new positions despite years of dedicated service is very discerning to many teachers. Potential to being assigned to less desirable grades, subjects, or responsibilities at a new school. Emotional and psychological impact is less sense of belonging to a school community that we've built over years. The stress of adapting to new workplace culture, colleagues, and expectations. The anxiety.
Ms. Landon, I'm sorry, I have to stop you because your time is up.
Thank you. I appreciate that you're listening.
Okay, we are going to move on. For the agenda, we're actually going to jump to the action items, and then we're going to come back to the adoption of agenda and consent agenda, since that is actually going to be after the action items. So for people following along on the agenda, the next item is going to be 6.1 start times for the 25-26 school year, and this is going to be by Dr. Davidson and Dr. Stone.
Press the button. All right. President's item, members of the board and community and staff, those watching online, thanks for being here tonight. Certainly, we appreciate the voice of our educators coming out to speak to this item. This item is one that we've had conversation around all year long and have sought the voice from numerous individuals for a variety of reasons. And Governing Board, I did put in the attachment that is seen on the screen, in particular page 2, spoke to the variety of reasons for the conversation and why we wanted to bring it to the Governing Board tonight. In particular, to honor the work of our educators, wanting to have that conversation out, and if the board so approved a change, we would do that prior to contracts being issued, so that if anybody was impacted in a way that hindered their ability to stay at their site, that they can make those choices as they needed to. Just some of the key things that I'd like to highlight, and certainly I'll invite Dr. Stone to the podium to address any questions as well, but some of the reasons for the changes. One, all schools being out by 3:30 in the afternoon, ensuring that we have consistent instructional time between our elementaries and our middle schools, trying to align some of our campuses that are in the same community, bringing them a little bit closer, trying to support our transportation department. Our Governing Board knows that this is a goal of mine that was assigned earlier this year, and we continue to look for ways to just provide greater opportunity for service on behalf of our transportation department to our families and our students. And lastly, as we look at Palm Valley transitioning into a K-8 campus, trying to make certain that their schedule is aligned with our other K-8s, so that it'll certainly help us out with after-school programming such as athletics. So those are some of the reasons that we wanted to bring this today. And I will certainly let Dr. Stone share any additional insight, and then we'll stand for questions.
One of the big drivers behind this really is aligning that 40-minute stop time in between each tiers to allow our drivers to make sure we get through the town on time. That's been a major hiccup for us still with certain schools going from the east side to the west side. And that's one big additive to this problem by improving it to ensure we're not showing up late. The 3:30 end time was important because we know currently the middle school, sometimes they have to wait for a bus because they're the third tier. If you're late on the first one, you're late on the second one. And that 40 minutes really helps them be more efficient in those. So.
Okay, I will see. Did you have any questions or comments about this item, Mr. Owens? Ms. Wallace, did you have any questions or comments?
You mentioned that you've done some different input from the staff. Like, what has been the process of talking with principals and staff to gauge how much this will affect?
Yep. So we started with our principal groups a few months ago, and we've gone through a few different iterations of changing the tiers and times. We kept coming back to the same thing about being done at 3:30 for tier 3. We actually looked at flipping it completely different by bringing middle schools to the first tier. And there was a lot of feedback there that it wasn't really, we weren't ready for that, right? And so we've gone to them 3 times to our principals to gather feedback. We also spoke to the Superintendent's Advisory Council about it, allowing them opportunity to provide feedback to us. Then, of course, letting principals talk to their staff as well. Yep.
Ms. Wallace, the other thing that I just want to highlight, if you can go to page 1, gentlemen, of the document, in particular, as one of our educators came and spoke tonight, if you look at the 2 elementary schools with asterisks on the tier 1, you see Scott Libby and Dreaming Summit. If you add up both of those numbers from gen ed and special ed routes, it comes to 14. To move Palm Valley, as well as potentially move Verado L closer to their sister school, Verado Middle, that was 16 routes we had to consider. So we worked with those principals individually to get their buy-in and so that they understood the rationale for why we would want to consider asking our board for a different start time for them.
I'm assuming that Dreaming Summit is also currently the 8:20 start time. Is that correct? I know Scott Libby is the 8:20 start time currently. I have no other questions. questions. I do feel like that is, like, an hour is a big change to those families. Um, for Palm Valley, changing the time by 25 minutes isn't as significant as a full hour for those families. So those are the two that give me the most pause, but I understand the reasoning.
Ms. Moran?
I don't have any questions, but my only feedback would be that since there are many families and staff members who will be impacted by this, I would like to make sure that it is proactively communicated, communicated fast and communicated often, so that families do have some time to digest this, and that staff have time to digest and figure out what is going to work for them. I agree with Board Member Wallace that the hour change is a change. And I think with the more advanced notice, the easier that change will be to figure out your own family logistics. I do want to just highlight as well that we are not changing our programming. We're not changing our academics. We're merely changing the start time, and hopefully the end result from that will be more reliable transportation as well. So I think the pros outweigh the cons in this situation. And again, my only concern is that everyone be made aware of this as soon as possible so they can have time to adjust. Thanks.
Ms. Moran, if I could also add, you use the term change, and I just wanted to also highlight, I have it written down, but we also know that this conversation is one that will continue into next year, knowing that Troy Gilbert Elementary School will need to have its routes established and take a look at the programming that's offered there. So I just want to also make our board aware of that and our community know that this conversation will continue to be extended.
Mr. Mikes?
Okay, yeah, thank you. That was one of the questions I had was, what does that look like when we onboard the next school and shift that around? And I guess we'll have to kind of see what comes of it. I don't necessarily really have any other specific questions. I mean, I sat down and just looked at all the different time changes from each school start and ending. And the two that stood out to me was the Scott Libby and Dreaming Summit or what I thought was a 50-minute change. I don't know if it's 8:15. It was 8:15 or whatnot, but so I totally recognize the difficulty in that, but also I recognize the difficulty in the entire process as far as trying to align start times and getting those buses, getting our kids there, safely and on time. I definitely understand the 3:30 piece as far as waiting for buses. I know at Western Sky, sometimes we're waiting for buses to show up quite a bit. And to alleviate that, I think will relieve a burden from the parents as well. But no, don't have really anything else. I just know there's no perfect solution. But looking at how everything was broken down, I think from my analysis, it looks like it's the best that we really can do with what we have right now. So, and I appreciate that and taking all that into consideration.
Mr. Mikes and Ms. Item, if you don't mind, when you talk about perfect solution, and I know Ms. Tassin and some of her members are here, first of all, I appreciate the support of our board as we continue to strengthen and grow our transportation fleet. But if Jenny were standing here, she would tell you the perfect solution is to continue to have more buses and more drivers to be able to manage this a little bit differently. And we're making great progress. I want to just highlight her and her team's efforts, but we're not quite there yet. But that is a possible outcome in front of us. So.
My only question is, what feedback did you get from middle school principals about how you're cutting out a part of their day now? Because they're going to have less time in their day. And I know schedules are difficult to create that big master schedule that all those people are working on during the summer and before school even gets out probably for next year. So how is this impacting them?
Thank you, President Zion. But there's certainly an impact, and we had more than one middle school principal that also said, "Hey, how about we add a little more time instead of taking away?" Because they do recognize that master schedule it can be complicated. Similar to the comments from Ms. Moran, our desire was to get their input and give them a lot of time to begin building a schedule that would work for them. And I know that's happening as we speak. But that's also why we wanted to bring it to the board in a decent time frame. But there was certainly conversation around how do we get this all to work, and our academic services team, Dr. Doozy and her team as well, are working closely with our principals.
Okay, thank you. Did anybody else have any comments or questions?
If I may real quick.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, when this conversation first started happening about time shifts and, anytime we boundary changes or whatever, make these decisions, we know they're going to have impacts on people's lives, and whether it be our faculty and staff, our teachers, our parents, right, our students, there's no win-win. Everybody, there's going to be sacrifices on both ends. Some people, this might be a relief, and now they know that they can get their kid easier to school. Others are going to have to make sacrifices. So I want everybody to know if you are impacted by these changes, that's not lost on us, but we're trying to make the best we can to ensure that, the big picture gets taken care of. Unfortunately, there's going to be people that have to make some sacrifices, or it's going to impact them negatively and others positively.
If somebody would like to make a motion.
I'll move to approve start times for schools for the 25-26 school year as presented.
I'll second.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second from Mr. Mikes, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Owens,
Yay.
Ms. Wallace,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Mr. Mikes.
Yay.
I'm a nay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, we are going to move on to the revised organizational chart for the 25-26 school year. This will be by Dr. Davidson and Ms. Satterfield.
Thank you, President Zeitem and members of the board. This item is one that was brought to you just as we further continue to discuss the future of our organization. The funny thing is I could also make a comment around how this item kind of is back to the future. And what I mean by that is done some research and done some learning around titles that once were in our district and then got changed over time, and wanted to bring the possible revision of modifying both of the current positions held by Executive Director of Operations and Executive Director of Program and Instruction to title them Assistant Superintendents. The rationale behind that is simply that title, not only did it once exist in our district, but it also is very well recognized in the educational community in most cases being a cabinet level title, which both of these individuals and these positions are. So it was really more so, President's item, just about alignment. Had some great conversation around, is it just the person? Is it the position as a whole? One could argue it was a combination of both. I just felt like it was really important, though, to think about our future and knowing the applicant pool that I would like to see one day if these positions were vacated, with people who are also trying to take my seat one day. So that's the rationale, and I'll stand for any questions, and certainly Human Resources alongside me. As you saw in the agenda item, there is no additional salary allocated to these. It's simply a title change. So thank you.
Mr. Owens, did you have any questions or comments?
None from me, thanks.
Ms. Wallace,
No questions.
Ms. Moran,
My question, and I couldn't find it anywhere, is the structure of this the same as our current org chart? Meaning when I look at this, it looks as though Executive Director Jennifer Benjamin reports to Deputy Superintendent Dr. Doozy, who then reports to you, and similar on the other side. Is that currently how it is set up, or do all of the executive directors report directly to you?
Thank you, Ms. Moran. This is currently how our org chart is currently organized.
Okay. And so in your vision, because this is your organization to organize as the superintendent. So in your vision, the titles of assistant superintendent would be a permanent change. That's the title that you think best fits those positions now that you've had some time with this org chart.
as of whatever time and date it is. Yes, ma'am, Miss Moran, I do. And I say that only because I do believe this title will allow us to secure an applicant pool in the future, perhaps, of individuals who are in the educational world, who have trained for this job, and perhaps, as I said, my job in the future. Now, with that also said, and you're probably like, Carter, why are you sharing both sides? But really, the alternative would be, in some cases, there are individuals that are also prepared from a different walk of life, somewhere from a business community, perhaps a different type of organization that wasn't school-based, and they potentially might be an applicant that we'd want to look at. And depending upon the job description and the title, Ms. Moran, it's very possible I could be here or another individual could be here talking to you about the titles. But as of today and as what I foresee for our future, I would want to answer the question with a yes.
Okay, and these titles are more common in other districts?
I believe, well, the answer is yes, but I also know if you were to search organizational chart, you will see all sorts of titles from chief, director, executive director, deputy. A lot of those titles are often interchangeable. But yes, ma'am, these two titles are certainly ones that are well represented in our education community.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mikes?
Yeah, no, nothing other than I support the change of the titles. They make sense to me when I was looking at it compared to what the previous work chart looked like from an educational standpoint for the flow of everything. So
I don't have any questions. I just want to reiterate to the community that if this passes here in a minute, we are not adding new positions. These are just changes of title, so we are not growing our admin. There's no money going to it. It's literally just a title change. So please know that, everyone in the community. With that, if somebody would like to make a motion.
I move to approve the revised organizational chart as presented to begin July 1st, 2025.
I'll second.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second, I think, from Mr. Owens. I'll call for the vote. Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Mr. Mikes?
yeah.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the real reason that this whole big meeting is happening today. We are going to move on to the consideration of approval of the projected budget for fiscal year 25-26. This is going to be by CFO Vaughn and Ms. Satterfield. I'm sure there'll be multiple people talking.
Yep. Okay. Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues, and community, thank you for joining us tonight to continue discussing and hopefully approving budget initiatives for the 2025-2026 school year. Tonight's presentation aligns with the district's strategic keystones of readiness, relationship, and resources. We've made very few changes from our conversation on February 25th. However, tonight we will go through those changes as shown on the slide. We'll spend most of our time tonight covering the benefits package for next year. However, prior to moving on to that topic, I'd like to provide a brief update on a recommendation shared during our discussion related to our student transporters and monitors. Previously, we recommended moving student transporters to 35 hours per week and monitors to 30. After a deeper analysis of the department, we're recommending 33 hours for student transporters and 28 hours for monitors. So a slight decrease from the previous recommendation, but still an increase from what they currently are posted at. You'll recall that when we've talked about it before, I've shared that this is really a no-cost change because when you look at what hours they're actually averaging, it better aligns with those numbers. So our hope is that it helps us in the recruiting process because we can be more transparent about the hours and the income earning potential that those jobs have. This slide shows the updated recommendation for food service prices for next year. This was based on governing board feedback to institute a percentage increase as opposed to a flat dollar amount increase. At this time, the team and I are available to answer any questions you might have on the food service or transportation changes we are proposing.
Mr. Owens, did you have any questions or comments?
I think the percentage on the food was in relation to Board Member Wallace's point. So I don't know if she was gonna ask that, but what was the change then for based on a percentage versus just what you guys cited?
Yeah,
Last slide.
so we ended up targeting, I'll go back to the slide for a second. So we ended up targeting the same increase to the price of the lunch, because that's really what we were focused on. And that ended up being a 7.9% increase. It did end up being a much smaller increase dollar amount wise for the ancillary items, if you will, because the percentage just ended up being much less than the 25 cents per item that we were discussing. So it leaves our lunch price exactly where we were previously proposing, which I think is good because it really aligns with what we're trying to accomplish. And then it makes those ancillary items cheaper than we were previously proposing.
Got it. Thank you.
Ms. Wallace, did you have questions or comments?
I
on this
have no
section?
questions, but I like how this looks much better.
I do too.
So thank you.
Ms. Moran,
No questions so far.
Mr. Mikes,
None for me.
none for me either, or we can move on.
All right. Next, we will share a slight update on the projected cost of the compensation study. As we began preparing for contract issuance, we noted 4 additional employees that were in a position impacted by the compensation study. We've updated our estimated cost to include these employees. The total cost of the inclusion of these 4 employees is $5,700. Due to this change, we have included updated slides showing the multi-year forecast, and I'll present them if there is a question. This slide remains unchanged from our last discussion. It shows an estimate of the resources we will generate from state and local sources based on our projected student counts and the characteristics of those students for the 2025-2026 school year. This slide also remains unchanged and shows the size of the total M&O budget for the 2025-2026 year, including one-time resources such as budget carryover. This slide is updated to reflect the additional cost from the compensation study we've previously discussed. This is the multi-year projection from the last board meeting. We've included it simply to allow you to see that the only change made was to update the cost of the compensation study. We've done this same activity for the reserve funds slide to aid in answering any questions you might have. The small adjustment to the cost of the compensation study does not significantly change the financial context of the budget proposal. Administration remains comfortable with this recommendation based on the reserves the district has in place and where we anticipate the ending the fiscal year we're currently in. At this time, the team and I are available to answer any questions you might have on our proposed changes and their financial implications before moving on to our benefits discussion.
Mr. Owens,
None for me, thanks.
Ms. Wallace,
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Moran,
No questions.
Mr. Mikes,
None.
no questions for me either. We can move on.
All right. Now we get into the exciting stuff. We're very happy to share with you the work the team has done on employee benefits this year. We know that benefits are a significant part of an employee's compensation package. Similar to the work that we conduct each year on wages with our compensation study practice, it is important to periodically ensure our benefits packages are as strong as possible. We did this year by releasing a request for proposal to insurance companies for our medical, dental, life, and vision insurance offerings. To lead this work, a committee was selected that included 2 certified staff members, 2 classified staff members, 2 district administrators, and representatives from the human resources and finance teams. Some of the committee has been able to join us tonight, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of the committee members that put so much time and effort into this process. So thank you. The committee met 3 or 4 times and conducted 3 rounds of scoring, the most recent of which was Monday evening. I'm happy to have the opportunity to share the committee's recommendation with you tonight. When we released the request for proposal, we had the opportunity to share with insurance companies what we were looking for. In doing this work, we requested that the providers build plans that are similar or richer than the ones we currently offer. Due to ASBATE being our present provider, they were able to provide their renewal to us outside of the RFP process. However, their renewal was rated and considered by the committee in the same way as all the other responses to the RFP process. It is important to understand that as an insurance pool, ASBATE provides the same insurance plans to all of its districts. The only item that differs between ASBATE districts is the price charged. This differs district to district based on the claims each individual district is experiencing. However, there are benefits to being in the pooled arrangement. ASBATE looks at the performance of the entire pool, meaning all of their districts, and provides rate changes within a range. If you are a district that has had a lot of claims, you will be at the top of that range, and if you are a district with fewer claims, you will be at the low end of the range. However, those with high claims benefit from being in the pool with districts with low claims and receive a lower rate increase than they would outside of a pool. This slide shows the committee's recommendation for insurance coverage for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. ASBATE remains the recommendation for medical and life coverage. As a reminder, this will mean the district will have to remain an ASBA member district. However, dental and vision include a vendor change. In the last 2 columns, you can see the district's contribution strategy to the cost of benefits. The first item I'd like to bring to your attention is that the committee has selected offerings for dental, vision, and life insurance that reduce the cost to our employees. You can see that by comparing the last 2 columns. The second thing I'd like to bring your attention to is the total district contribution remains the same, both for the current year and the 2025-2026 fiscal year. This means all of the savings are being passed on to our employees. I would also like to share that not only is the dental and vision coverage less expensive for our employees, the coverage is richer than our current offerings. We've passed on this savings to employees by increasing how much the district contributes to the cost of the medical coverage and by maintaining the total contribution towards the cost of all benefits. We've structured the cost of the plans for our employees in such a way that the high deductible healthcare plan remains free with a $475.44 HSA contribution from the district. However, there are plan changes that ASBATE has instituted at all of their covered districts for next year that make the medical package slightly less robust with increased copays, deductibles, and out-of-pocket maximums. They have also shared that the 2025-2026 fiscal year will be the last year they offer the copay gold, commonly known or referred to in Litchfield as the grandfathered plan. I'd like to make it clear that the district and the committee had no ability to influence this decision. The plan will be in place with modifications for the 2025-2026 plan year, but will no longer be offered after that. Partially supported by these plan changes instituted by ASBATE, their renewal offer came in at 2.5% and made remaining with ASBATE for medical coverage the most cost-effective option for our employees. And the committee felt strongly that forcing a change in network and paying more to retain richer plans was not in the best interest of our employees. At this time, we're happy to answer any questions you have on the benefits packages. The next several slides go into significantly more detail on the benefits packages. We're happy to present them or simply have them included for review and approval.
Mr. Owens, did you have any questions or comments on this section?
Yes, I also would like to thank everybody who was involved in going through this. I know this was an intense process, something that we hadn't done in a long time. And so I think that this process was fruitful. And while we are still with ASBATE and we didn't change, it reassures us that we know we have the best coverage. And so I'm happy that no pencils needed sharpened and we didn't have to go back. And I'm grateful to ASBATE for providing this number to us and that we're able to keep the number the same. So, and I'm good. I don't think we need to go into the rest of the slides, but if the rest of the board wants to, we can.
Ms. Wallace, did you have any questions, comments, and did you want them to go through the rest of the slides? You could add that in there too.
Yes, it's a good thing to add in there. I do not have any questions. I also thank the team for all of their hard work. As I said last time, I know we were hoping that we could find that diamond in the rough that would save everyone all the money, but it doesn't exist. And I appreciate very much that we were able to pass on any savings to the staff through the dental and vision coverage, and any savings that we can offer, as long as it's not an increase, is a win. So congratulations. Thank you for all of your hard work. I have reviewed all of the slides coming forward and they seem pretty straightforward. We don't need to go through them line by line if everyone else doesn't.
Ms. Moran?
Yeah, I agree. We don't have to go through all the slides, but I do have some questions on some of that information. My first comment is on slide 22, which is where it states that the gold plan is going away, which is no surprise because obviously the way that health insurance is modeled and popularized these days is not this way. And so one of the questions that I asked that I believe was shared with all board members is how many participants we have in each of the plans to see what that impact is going to be. And based on the information provided, there are 77 out of 1,117 employees who currently are under the grandfathered plan. So while it will impact those 77 people, it will not impact the majority. That's 7% of our employees. So, and same thing there. We've got lots of time to let them know that this will no longer be offered. Obviously, to CFO Vaughn's point, we don't have a choice in the matter either way. So this is happening, and hopefully those folks can find some good providers under the Classic Gold or HDHP plan. Since I said that, I will also go ahead and give the rest of the information about the other plans that are on the upcoming slides. But we offer 3 plans for health insurance, and then we have some employees who don't have, we don't take our health insurance coverage. And as the previous slide shows, we contribute for medical, or we will contribute next year for medical, $7,477 per employee that elects the coverage. But we have 230 employees, 21% of our workforce, that is eligible but doesn't elect the insurance. And so I would like us, and as a board, we have brought this up in the past, but I would like us to consider a different way of offering coverage, because I feel like those 230 people are not getting the same total compensation that the people who elect health insurance are. They're getting $7,477 less in compensation. And that doesn't seem right to me. So I'm not proposing any changes for next year, but I would like us to start considering shifting that into people's paychecks who are not electing our insurance coverage, and shifting more of the cost along with the money in the paycheck for those who do, because I don't feel that it's equitable for those 21% of our employees who choose not to have coverage. And I think that number would actually go up if we started doing that. That's just my feedback for the future. No other questions on this particular, well, the only other thing I will say is 7% of our employees are in the copay gold, the grandfathered plan. 33% are in classic gold, and 39% do the high deductible plan. And I'm glad to see that many doing the high deductible plan, because that's the plan where we also contribute to their HSA, health savings account, and they get to keep that money if they don't spend it on healthcare. So that is definitely a win-win. I know we just instituted that during my time on the board, and we had some skeptics as to if people would really want to go to that plan. And I'm glad to see that almost 40% of our employees have opted to do that. So thank you.
If I may, I mean, I know we're going to hopefully or ideally put it up for future discussion, but I have never, and maybe I'm wrong, but I've never heard of declining insurance from a company than getting paid that in cash. I decline coverage because I go through my wife. I don't get that from my company. I've worked for state government. I've declined coverage for my wife. Didn't get that money. I think that's a slippery slope to go down that opens a lot of things open. It's incentivizing people to decline healthcare coverage as well. So that I think that might need to be included in that. I think we're trying to invent a wheel that doesn't need invented, personally.
I think that that's a conversation for another time. Definitely not part of what we're doing right now, but I think that's a longer conversation we'd have to have. And if we can even do anything like that, I don't know. So, because we are obligated to provide an insurance option for our staff. So we can talk about that in the future for sure when we're move on to that subject. Mr. Mikes, did you have any questions or comments on this section?
I don't have anything else other than what's been said, but I do appreciate going through all the stuff. I went through, or for the committee that went through everything. I dove deep into what was on the presentation, and I can't imagine sitting through and trying to do all this stuff and look at all the different plans. I appreciate you guys taking care of that. I appreciate the fact that, these days, for us to hear that something is not increasing, the year after anything is a nice thing to be able to say. So I appreciate all the hard work with everything.
I don't have any questions either. Again, I echo what everybody else has said. Thank you to the people that were on the committee and helped to go through all this information. It was a lot of stuff. And then committing to make sure you got to it this week, right when you guys got the information, so that we could approve whatever we're going to approve tonight and we can get our contracts out on time. So thank you to everybody that did that. It was a lot of work. And I am glad we went through this process as well, because of the fact that we haven't done it before. It helps us to feel better in what we are offering our staff and knowing that we are doing the best we can with the money that we are given. And I was sad to see a lot of the changes they're making. I understand that has nothing to do with us, but it's still kind of hard to see that. And that's happening everywhere, though. We're all dealing with that who aren't working for this district and have to look at insurance stuff every year. So it's kind of an unfortunate thing we all have to deal with, but thank you guys for the work. But I'm done with this.
So if you would just give me a moment, because I'm going to have to advance through quite a number of slides.
Take your time. As long as it's not taking your time telling us what's everything, because I do not also need us to go through that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to assume your answer.
You know me, Michael. I love 117 slide presentations. They're my favorite.
And I love putting them together for you. I think it is an important question to ask with this process, whether the request for proposal and review of our benefits package was really worth the effort. And I would say that it definitely is. We estimate that the RFP process saved our employees between $232,000 and $335,000, and we're happy to pass on that entire savings to our staff. You may wonder, with the increased cost to our employees, how we could still be saving them money. Before we went into this process, we anticipated a 5% rate increase based on what had been shared with us and our claims experience. When we look at the rate increases the pool as a whole saw, it shares a similar story. The lowest rate increase seen by an ASBATE district outside of an RFP process was 3.75%, with an average of 5%. The RFP process also allowed us to enrich our offerings at a lower cost for dental and vision. Our next steps for employee benefits include implementing these plan changes for our employees. Next year, we plan to run a similar process for voluntary benefits to ensure that we're providing the most robust options we can for our employees. We'll also be working to implement additional support to help to try to reduce our claims. This is beneficial for a number of reasons. It would mean we have a healthier workforce and the possibility of lower renewals for our employees going forward. We are also proposing to continue the adoption of the employee appreciation benefit for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. While we plan not to provide a budget allocation for this benefit by having the governing board consider approving it as part of the benefits package, it does allow our leaders within the district to utilize other available resources for these purposes. We also are working on some other changes for next year that we'd like to take a moment to share. We are in the process of simplifying how our compensation appears on the employees' contracts and paychecks. For many years, the compensation has been shown broken up into various accounting buckets that support the overall compensation. For next year, these amounts will largely be rolled into a base pay line associated with the employee's position. However, there will still be a separate line for the compensation where the employee will be able to elect the timing of the pay. This separation is required to allow that election to occur and to be processed by our payroll department. This slide shows what it may look like for an employee. When employees receive their contracts on March 17th, they will have some additional decisions to make compared to prior years. We are going to be providing employees the opportunity to go paperless for their tax forms, elect the timing of the compensation being shifted to the base, as well as the standard of election of how many pay periods they would prefer to be paid over. We hope that the opportunity to go paperless will bring some efficiencies to our processes, as well as increase security over sensitive tax documents for our employees. As promised, we also worked on the rebranding of the new performance pay system. We would like to call the plan itself the Leadership Development Plan, with the expanded TLP we've discussed in the case of teachers, or the scorecard process in the case of administrators, the Continuous Learner Project. These changes align well with our Litchfield learner. We also met with representatives from the related service providers, special education leadership, and other district leaders to discuss what to do with performance pay for related service providers. As we've talked about before, their performance pay is entirely connected to their performance evaluation. As we work to separate the evaluation instrument from compensation, consensus was that it made most sense to shift their performance pay to base compensation in the same way we are doing for other groups. This proposal is reflected on the placement charts that are on the consent agenda tonight. The remaining slides remain unchanged from last time, other than to reflect changes we've discussed tonight. They have been included for discussion and potential approval. At this time, the team and I are available to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Owens,
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Wallace,
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Moran.
I only have one comment, which is I cannot believe that you have been doing all, not you personally, but that we have only been offering paper W-2s to people. That is insanity. So thank you for bringing relief to these people and their CPAs everywhere.
And my payroll team. Thank you.
Mr. Mikes?
No questions for me.
No questions for me either. Thank you so much. So are we, yes, I guess we're ready to, since we're not going to go through the rest of the stuff, right? There's nothing else you need to share with us?
Not unless there's other questions.
Does anybody have any other questions about any of the things? Otherwise, someone is welcome to make a motion.
I move to approve the projected budget for fiscal year 2025-2026.
I second.
Having a motion from Mr. Owens and a second from Ms. Wallace, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Woohoo, we have a budget.
Thank you.
Can I ask one follow-up question that's not related to the actual approval that we just did, but it is related to this topic, which is, can I get a high-level overview of what the communication plan is for these changes?
Yeah. So we plan to put out an all-staff email tomorrow with the changes. And then over the next week or so, we plan to record a video that we hope to push out at right around the same time of issuance of contracts, just trying to make some of these things more digestible. As you know, we've done a lot of work this year in this budget, changing a lot of things in a positive way, but it is important that we try our very best to help people understand these changes as we move forward.
Great, thank you.
Okay, with that, we are going to move on to the next item, which is the approval of guaranteed maximum price number 2 contract for Troy Gilbert Elementary. This is going to be by CFO Vaughn.
Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining us tonight to discuss and consider approving the second GMP, or guaranteed maximum price, for work for Troy Gilbert Elementary School. This is an exciting one, almost as exciting as the last one. Our first GMP was designed simply to allow ordering of long lead time items. This GMP includes temporary fencing and clearing the site and ordering of additional long lead time items in preparation for actual construction of the school. We're very happy to ask for approval to begin early construction work on the build out of our new school. We anticipate bringing the third and likely final GMP for the project at our next board meeting. The team and I are available to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Owens?
No questions, thanks.
Ms. Wallace?
No questions.
Ms. Moran?
No questions.
Mr. Mikes?
No questions.
I don't have any questions either. I think this is way more exciting than the last one, to be honest, but if someone would like to make a motion.
I'll motion to approve the guaranteed maximum price number 2 with core construction for the Troy Gilbert Elementary School project and authorize the chief financial officer to execute the contract agreement.
I'll second.
Having a motion from Mr. Mikes and a second from Mr. Owens, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
I'm also yay. Motion passes. This is my favorite vote of the night, everybody. Okay. Next, we are going to go back to the adoption of agenda and consideration of consent agenda. I'll go through and see if anybody has any items that they wish to pull off of the consent agenda. Mr. Owens, did you have any items?
I do not.
Ms. Wallace?
I do not.
Ms. Moran?
No, I do not.
Mr. Mikes?
None for me.
I don't either. Somebody would like to make a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second for Mr. Owens, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
I am also a yay. Motion passes. Okay. We are going to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is discussion items. This is going to be a discussion of the volunteer training process, and this will be by our Director Nuanez, Executive Director Nuanez, sorry.
Okay, Madam President, Governing Board members, I'm here tonight to give you an update on our volunteer program. As we had previous discussions on some questions from the Governing Board on where were we at with that. We've had some updates and conversations within our team. So the objective of this is we want to ensure that all of our students are protected as we always promote that safety of our students and staff is our top priority. Bringing people, volunteers and or visitors into our school is something that we want to make sure that we are vetting properly and making sure that. So we want to ensure that all volunteers are required to complete the online training volunteer application before engaging with any students. The volunteer groups that we currently deal with right now are parents and guardians. Those parents and guardians, when they do fill out that process, the online training and the packet, then they go directly with their school of choice and coordinate with them, front office people. And we have designated front office people that handle those volunteers for those opportunities within their individual schools. The second group that we do deal with is the non-custodial relatives and the community members. What we do with them is they also go through the training packet, the application process, which brings them into a spreadsheet, and it's all done digitally. Previous in the years before, couple of years before, it was all done by paper. Thanks to communication generalist Yardley Zamorano, she has digitized that all, and now it all feeds in as they fill it in. They fall into the spreadsheet. They get into their individual tabs of their schools of choice, and we have a way to recall any of the volunteers through their phone numbers, emails, and of their required copies of their IDs. We also too, with those non-custodials, right now in our current process, we go through and we do a high-level background check, which consists of running them through the National Sex Offenders Database to see if there's any hits on that. And then we also do a Maricopa County Courts check just to make sure that there's nothing going on within the courts or within the recent past that have any kind of red flags concerning any children or any kind of questionable behaviors that might raise a red flag of that, you know, we're not sure if we want this individual being exposed to our children. Now, the one things that we did find is that we are currently not working, but we are moving towards is our non-paid volunteer coaches. As we know, we have our paid volunteer coaches that come on and technically become an employee and have certain expectations. Well, they have been bringing on, you know, there's a parent, a relative, a friend that comes on and says, hey, I want to help you coach the basketball team, volleyball team. And then they just kind of step right onto the field or on the court, and we don't know who those are and stuff. So that's where we're going to start to fill those gaps. One of the other things now that we want to bring forward also is then what is the difference between a volunteer and a visitor? Our volunteers are those that will be vetted. They come through, they go through the process, and they come and they're repeated, they're exposed. They come in to help a teacher with a class, help office staff with any kind of procedures in that. So those will be the regular recurrences. As obviously the visitors, is where we categorize the mom, the dad, the grandma comes in, wants to have lunch with their children, come in to read to a class. things like that, that are more kind of like the one-offs and coming in just for those individual contacts. And typically those ones are done with a specific student and not necessarily with a group of students, unless it's like I said, coming in to read. Volunteers and the strategic plan. How does this all tie into our strategic plan? With the relationships, building the robust network, it's really essential to building the Litchfield learner. Gives aid to the teachers, gives aid and just kind of an extra set of hands, extra set of eyes to help within, sometimes our very stretched out resources that we have within our classrooms. We just want to make sure that we're also part of that, in that relationship thing, is building trust, right? We want to make sure that we're creating that safe environment for our students, which creates a trust within our community, showing that we are taking these steps to create that trust. But it also goes in the other angle. We want to make sure that we're able to trust the people that we are bringing into our schools and exposing our children to as well. The readiness factor, it's, we're using the preventative measures and the intentional practices to create that safe and positive school and work environments. As for resources, and it's just increases with those additional people to help out in the classroom or in the front offices, we're increasing opportunities for the staff and the students to enhance and be enhanced as a Litchfield learner. So in our current process, as we just, previously touched on, the parent and custodial volunteers, they complete this online, and this is just a quick representation of the digital form that they fill out. Once it's approved, they go to directly to school of choice. The non-custodials, once again, will go through the training application, and we will run those background checks. Now we're changing kind of course now is we want to make sure that we're keeping track of the non-paid coaches volunteers that come on. So as we discussed before, all volunteers are going to be required to go through the same process, through the training packet and through the application form as well. We want to make sure we're also in discussions with HR to revise the job descriptions for paid coaches. And we want to make sure that they understand that they are responsible for any volunteer coaches that come on to ensure that they are filling out their process, that they're going through the process. We're getting them into the system. And then as you'll see as we're coming up on the next few slides, we'll see how we start to integrate the Centegix platform into that as well. Now, as a volunteer right now, it is extremely simple right now. You'll look in the bottom bar there, you'll see a volunteer box, and you'll see kind of like a map of how it goes through. You click on volunteers, or you can click down on there. It takes you directly to this page. It is bilingual, so it makes it easy for our Hispanic community as well. It gives you step-by-step process of how to go through this, who can volunteer, what is the sign-in procedures, the cell phone use. It is a very comprehensive training packet that goes through. I'm not going to run it all the way through for you, but as you can see, it touches on really all the things that we need and want our volunteers to know. And then it takes them from there, very simple, takes them to the volunteer application form where they fill it out and it goes into our system automatically. Okay, so now the updates to our volunteer process. Once again, anybody that is going to have any interaction with any of our students will need to go through this process, any volunteer. So they will do the online volunteer training. They will do the online volunteer application. Now, the new step to this is that all volunteers must complete a school check-in through Centegix, right? And that's where we want to make sure that they're going through. Now, what is that going to do? That's also going to help the resources in our communications department, because there's a certain time of year, usually at the beginning of the year, when we get an influx of non-custodials. And it takes some time to go through and type in names and date of births and run that national sex offender database and then go into the court systems. So, I mean, where we could be doing other communication things, that Centegis will run that database check, background check for us. The non-paid volunteer coaches, their initial, they will also be required, as just with everybody in that process, to do the Centegix scan. And that, so they won't have to do it every time they come to do a coaching session or stuff. We just want to make sure that we're getting them on the books, we've run them through the system, and then they will be good for that season. Let me backtrack once again real quick too, is in the fact that our current process and that what we will continue is that we require all volunteers to resubmit every year. So basically it's from through the school year, the end of May is your volunteer once you get approved. Then if you plan on volunteering the next year, you have to go through the whole process again. We don't know what has transpired with this individual, you know, from the time they've left one school year to the time that they've come on to a new school year. So we want to make sure that we're being very, very precise with all the information that we're seeking out of them. The mandatory ID upload ensures that we have complete applications. Now, what we're looking on here now is with that Centegix, where we have that digital automated application form that comes into a spreadsheet. The plan is, and Director Foster did your oral. I always just want to call him Moss, Director Moss. We're working right now on integrating the systems. So basically, if they come in to do their volunteer, and eventually we're going to get to the point that once we get those systems integrated, a person comes in to do a volunteer, and Centegix will read it and say, well, you don't have a red flag on a sex offender thing or anything else, but you haven't completed the training, so you're still not approved, right? So that'll help us. That'll just be an extra stopgap for that process. So as you'll see, a little video here. I mean, it's very simple process here. They come in, quick scan, you're in. The IDs check-ins at the school offices, real-time volunteer activity tracking, and support data collections for improved reporting, where we can put out print out reports and search specific individuals if any kind of red flags or questionable behavior happens with any individual. The next steps through the Centegix check-in requirement and volunteer compliance. Once again, just to re-emphasize, all volunteers, anybody that will have any contact with our students must go through this process, regardless of the role, and they need to check in at the front office through the Centegix system. The principals will ensure that vendors are also included in this process. Right. So like, I mean, we really, like I said, when we use the word all, we mean all. We want to make sure that we're being comprehensive across the board here. The volunteer training and documentation, once again, they will all have to go through this. That's just going to be basically the double check of the Centegix. And once we marry those systems together, it is really, I'm very confident that it's going to be a very, very solid checking on each other. That we'll be able to check, have they done the volunteer training, and are they clearing the national databases? Now, we have instances where we do have the after-school programs and activities where the volunteers won't be coming in during school office opening. The requirement and the expectation is going to be that if you are a volunteer that participates in an after school hours or something when the office is closed, you're going to have to at some point come in during the school hours and get that Centegix run. So, you know, we're going to be very strict in making sure that all these boxes get checked before we allow them to engage with our students. You'll see there, this also applies, but is not limited to just the volunteers in the STEAM, robotics, sports, and other after-school activities. Now open to take any questions you may have. We also have communications generalist Yarly Zamorano, who actually does all of our volunteer input and background checks, and Director Foster Diorio to answer any questions you may have as well.
Mr. Owens?
I'm 100% positive the answer is yes, but this includes like all our community partners, right?
Absolutely, yes. Like I said, when we say all,
Not just volunteers or guests, but
exactly. If you are going to be exposed to any of our students, this is the process.
perfect. Just wanted to clarify that. No, I think this is great. I think you started off with saying safety is our priority of these children, right? We don't want to make it overly burdensome for parents and custodians or whoever to volunteer on campus. We want that involvement, but these steps are very easy the process is very easy for them to get access to our schools. And we know that they're good people and they're the people that we want on campus. So I applaud your efforts and thank you.
Ms. Wallace?
Ms. Zinema, can I interject real quick?
Yes.
Thank you. And I just want to comment as Mr. Owens was speaking of that, our conversation was around the optics, and when vendors come into our schools and have access to our students, they certainly go through the process of, gaining access. But we also know if something negative were to occur, that we know, even if it wasn't our own fault, would certainly be, there'd be a certain level of liability there that we are trying to diminish. So that's why we really had that conversation around, no matter who you are, if you have access to our children, we're going to do our best to ensure that you at least have a certain level of clearance before you have access to working with our students.
Yeah, and I know firsthand, I was a assistant baseball coach for a middle school baseball, and I just showed up on campus and coached and nobody even knew I was there. So I think this is good.
Ms. Wallace?
I don't know if you mentioned and I missed it, but what is the time frame between a parent filling this out and being cleared to go into the classroom? And then what is the process if they are not, if something does show up that maybe even they're not aware of working through notifying them about their inability to volunteer?
We have Ms. Zamorano come up and answer that question, since she's the one that actually processes those requests.
Yeah, good evening. So on our website, we state that the current process from the time the application is submitted, the turnaround, we ask for a minimum of 2 weeks, but usually we're able to turn that around much quicker. Our volunteers are really good at reaching out to and asking any questions. And then our coordinators at our school sites who oversee that volunteer process to do check-ins. But like I mentioned, usually the turnaround is much quicker. And then I think there was an additional question. Can you repeat that, please?
So if the volunteer process is a little bit lengthy, or say they found out about it the night before, we can still run them through as visitors. The visitor is still going to do the National Database Sexual Offenders Check. It's not going to do the background check, but it'll do the Sexual Offenders Database. And we can still have them on our campus as a visitor. It'll still run that preliminary baseline check. So if something does come up, like they are on a list where they shouldn't be on our campus, then I think that's it.
Yeah, that's fine. Part of that spreadsheet that we compile, the last column is approved and says yes or no. So the coordinators on the specific sites, as they come on, they check that and they say, oh, well, you filled it out, but you're not approved. There's a flag. And it's actually, we color coded. If it's not approved, it shows up as a red box. So you can fly by those really quick and do that. And it's just like with any spreadsheet, you can control F it and go directly to this person and find them rather pretty quickly. So, but what the new process is with the digital application and all of that, and us not having to do that manual typing in, That's going to, like, as Ms. Zamorano stated, we ask for 2 weeks, because sometimes there's a lot of them. But typically it's done much quicker. But also once now with this automated process, that'll compress that time as well. So we should be able to do them, quickly, hopefully within a week, if not even less.
Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
Yeah, can you just summarize for me? You got to break it down. So when you're just a visitor and they scan your driver's license, what does that do? And then when you're a volunteer and you fill out the packet, what does that do? Yeah, tell me the difference between those things.
That's very easy. So when you do come on site as a visitor, pretty much just takes your name, likeness, and information on your driver's license, runs your date of birth, name, and likeness against the sexual offenders database, and it does 5 years previous and ahead, or in advance and behind the date of birth. So it's a 10-year search of that person. For volunteer, it's pretty much the same, except we also, once it goes through the system, we add them on a pre-approved list. So if you're not on a pre-approved list, like a packet didn't go through the district, your name did not make the list, you cannot get a visitor, a volunteer badge. You can get a visitor one, but a volunteer, which we would give a little more unrestricted access to the campus, their badge would not say volunteer. So that's just the big disparity right there. There's an approved list, which goes to the district that we create for the volunteers, visitor, vendors, anybody on site that comes to wants to visit, they'll get that rudimentary background check. And also to add to Ms. Wallace's question, or the question of like, if somebody pops up on the offender's database, like say a visitor comes on, their name matches, it automatically gets notified to the site administrator and the front office that their name, date of birth, or something in their characterization of their driver's license matches an offender. And so we'll have their picture, we'll have their name, because, we use the generic, it's for all the examples I used Lisa Jacobs or Lisa Jones. There's a gentleman that used AKA his Lisa Jones as his alias. So when you put in Lisa Jones, it's going to come up as a sexual offender, but it's a gentleman and is also known as Lisa Jones. But you'll look, yep, that's Lisa Jones. That's not her. Then you can approve it. Then the badge will print out. If they do match likeness, name, date of birth, then that's a conversation where the administrator will come out and have that conversation. We're like, hey, I'm not sure if you're aware, but you are on our sex offenders database. It's listed here. If you feel this is done in error, please contact local law enforcement to get that cleared up. And generally, if they are aware they're on this list, they'll be like, all right, and then they'll leave. And that's kind of a no harm, no foul, because they didn't gain access to our students. But if it was one where they were trying to maliciously, like if they didn't have kids on our campus and they were trying to get access, we could also call law enforcement, have them come out, say this gentleman tried to gain access to our site.
Thank you. My only other follow-up question is, and I could be wrong on this, so President Zaidama, you might know more, or Mr. Mikes. I believe the high school district requires a fingerprint clearance card to do volunteering at their campuses. And so what is the difference there between a fingerprint clearance card versus this rudimentary Centegix background check that you're referring to?
Fingerprint cards are like more thorough background checks, where the Centegix is sexual offender database. It's specifically to that national list.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mikes?
One question I have is in regards to the non-paid volunteer coaches, which I appreciate us having a system and a process for that. The end piece of as far as who's in charge of making sure that person has the official pass, hey, are they allowed out on the field? Is there a backside to it where, okay, here's to the administrator, here's all the coaches, volunteer coaches that are approved for the season? Is that what that would look like? Or to the coach, or is that just going to be site specific as far as that's handled?
Okay, so keep in mind, we're basically starting from scratch here with that part of it, right? So initially there's going to be some fluidity to this right now, but for initially, like I said, or we discussed earlier, we're gonna work on the job description for for the paid coaches, and put the responsibility on them for the volunteers that they bring on to their team. We're also going to be incorporating the ADs at the school sites to aid with that, right? So that we have multi-tiered oversight on helping, so we have our district AD, and then we'll have our site-specific ADs that will aid in that process as well.
Okay, great. And then just to reiterate what Board Member Owen said too, I appreciate the streamlined piece of it for people that want to volunteer or be part of our schools sometimes, or districts, if we don't have this clear process for people, we'll just keep good people out of our schools from being, wanting to be a part of the process. And so having this place, getting rid of as many gray areas as possible, streamlining it from the paperwork side as well. I mean, it's a great use of Centegix of what I'm seeing too. So I appreciate you guys handling all these aspects.
President Zainama, might I add real quick?
Yes.
To the conversation on the fingerprint clearance card. Right now, if parents, custodial parents want to volunteer and chaperone an overnight field trip, we do require the fingerprint clearance card. There's also another level of fingerprint clearance card, which many of us in this room have, which is the IVP card, which is connected to the Department of Public Safety and would throw up a red flag for a variety of crimes that any one of us may commit. So that's probably the ultimate fingerprint clearance card that could exist. There's a cost to both of those type that I mentioned. Right now, of course, we have access to the sexual offender database is where we're starting.
Also just to probably include in that is the fact that since we are a district of continuous improvement, like I said, this is our starting block. We will, I'm sure we'll have, much larger conversations on how do we, once we get this started, it's like, we plan, we do, we check, and we act, and then we repeat that process again and see with what we initially start out with, find those gaps, fill those gaps, run it again, and then just continuous until we fill all the gaps that we potentially could have.
I am curious if our expectation is, and I'm pretty sure I understand this answer, but anybody that comes on our campus will scan their license ID to be able to get on campus because they're going to have access to our students. But is it the expectation that any parents or people that are going to come on campus with our students should have to go through the full volunteer process? Or do we feel like that they should not have to do like the full volunteer application thing just to be on campus to say, have lunch with their students?
Yeah, no, that's maybe it was not clear enough, at least at the beginning, on the difference between a visitor and a volunteer. So the volunteers, anytime if you are coming on in a volunteer status, that process must be followed. If you're just, like you say, if you're coming in to have lunch with your student quarterly or what is once a month or whatever it may be, you're coming in as a visitor, you run that cursory check strictly off of your license. But if you're coming in to be repeatedly, weekly, twice a week, or whatever it may be to help in a classroom or whatever it is, then that's the volunteer status, which you do have to do the process.
So do we expect that all our schools are going to follow the same rules about this? Because right now we have different campuses that have different procedures in place for how they handle visitors and volunteers, and some make it more cumbersome than others. And so I just want to know if we're trying to make it be this streamlined same process on every campus, or if we're going to allow schools to decide on their own.
We haven't dipped that, but where I stand on that is that we should have a consistency. We try to achieve consistency with all the other things we do in this district. I believe that and then if there is any kind of specific issues, we will take those on a case by case, like I said, as we go through that continuous improvement process. But the expectation would be that we're doing things the same across the board.
Okay. I have one other
Go ahead.
question about that too. So I know a lot of campuses, so kind of what Melissa was saying, hold like their student assemblies and their rallies like in the gym. And so they're setting up a table outside of there, not near their Centerix system, to usher all the parents in. Are we going to continue to allow the parents to, fill out forms at gym doors? Because that's a pretty common practice.
So we're working on how is that advantageous for our district? So like we can set up remote stations, just your laptop, take a scanner, plug it in, and we can start scanning them in and then just give them the visitor badge, instead of having to print out the expensive thermal tape ones to put on, because they're only going to be in there for an hour and then they're just going to leave right away. But we want to be able to account for those adults that are coming onto the campus in those large assemblies. And we also want to make it timely. So the idea right now is to be able to set up a remote station on a laptop, just scan driver's license as they come in. This will sign them into the system. We will give them, once they pass, we'll just give them the visitor badge so we know they're authorized to be here for the assembly. And then when we leave, we can bulk check them out as a group. So we're building out that tab, an assembly tab. So that way it's easier for all the sites, because we know we get sometimes 100, 200 parents in one assembly. And it's going to be very cumbersome if they're sitting there even for 1 minute to go through and scan, wait, get authorization. So we're working on building that out so that we have that ready to go for next year. And then to the question about the standard across the district, I think this summer we're going to be writing a lot of standard operating procedures, SOPs, and this is going to be one of them that we want to be able to start the year off with clear, concise instructions, good SOPs that they look. All the office managers could say, this is what is expected from the district. This is how we'll do it. So we're going to be busy.
President Zaidama, I just can't help but to add as well. What you're hearing tonight is the floor, right? The foundation, the basics. To your point around consistency, we know there are some principals that engage with their volunteers differently. They request that they come and have, occasional meeting with them, an extra type of training. And I certainly would support that. I think that's the connection with the families and the principal. But that certainly probably does differ a little bit depending upon who the leader is. But what we're speaking about tonight is the foundational practices.
Right, and I understand that. It's just, I want to make sure that we're being consistent with everybody and that we're not putting cumbersome things on families who want to just come and have a lunch with their kid versus I want to come and volunteer in a classroom, because that could just put some deterrence if there's stuff where teachers want to invite families to come in one day for some presentation, but they can only come if they've done volunteer training, even though they're not really volunteering. So I just want to make sure, I like the idea of consistency. I'm very happy with having the standard operating procedures for everybody. I love that idea. But I also do like the idea of the communication with people. I'm not saying we should discontinue that. It should be streamlined and easy for people to be at our campus if they are able to be there. So does anybody else have any other questions for our volunteer presentation people? No? Thank you very much for putting this together. And thank you for keeping it into 12 slides. We just were discussing recently that we were going to have a 12-slide max as a joke, but then you did it. So it was great.
Well,
See, it is possible to do.
Michael was challenging me, but yeah. Thank you.
Does that mean I can break up my presentations into about 35 presentations, or
That's getting us closer, I suppose.
Smaller font. Just do
gotcha?
smaller.
Thank you for the advice.
Okay, we are ready to move on to reports. We are going to start with our report from Dr. Davidson.
All right. Thank you, President Zaina, members of the board. First and foremost, just appreciate all of you giving time to our governing board showcases, and certainly to team members out here in the audience going to our apple pie tours. It's always fun to get into our schools and see the staff working and see the children and just take a look at everything that they're learning. Most recently, just wanted to give a couple of shout outs as we move forward to our Litchfield Learner Committee. Some of those members are still here in the audience, but you heard about that work last year and about the work that we're doing this year around creating what is called the I Can statements across our different grade bands. We look forward to sharing that work with you soon, but saw some of that work this evening. It looks great and it's going to make a lot of sense. So I'm excited about that. Also a shout out, and I gave this shout out a while ago to many of our school leaders, our principals who have self-contained programs for students with disabilities on their sites. I had a chance this week to read, as did Mr. Owens, to some of our self-contained programs for students with autism. And what an experience, amazing opportunity, and a very eye-opening experience as well on behalf of students that we serve. And so I just wanted to throw a a public challenge to anybody listening tonight that if you really want to come and see what we do here and you really want to see all of the students that we serve, please call my office. I'd gladly take you for a tour to visit any of our classrooms because the work our staff does, incredible. With that said, we have spring break coming, and I want to just encourage everybody to get rested and get ready for the final 9 weeks of our school year. And Eric and Michael spoke to it a little bit tonight, the work on Troy Gilbert Elementary. Be on the lookout, save the date sometime in April. Some clearing's going to happen, and we look forward to sticking some shovels in the ground on behalf of our opening ceremony for groundbreaking. So thank you, Governing Board.
Thank you. Next, we will do reports from the board, and we'll start with Mr. Owens tonight.
Thank you. Since our last board meeting, I attended the Rancho Santa Fe showcase. Unfortunately, missed the student welcome. That's always a highlight, but I did get there and amazed and impressed by what Principal Zuniga is doing on campus there. Her team, we got to hear from faculty, staff, teachers, students, get a full tour, and it was very impressive. Then we had the special board meeting last week, and then on Monday of this week, we had a showcase at Palm Valley. Principal Hill and her team did an excellent job of showing the transition they're currently making as having recently just added 6th grade this year and what they're going to do next year when they add 7th. I was lucky enough to get a tour by my boy Rowan, who was here earlier getting celebrated. He did a great job. So that was cool to see that during the day we were talking about the things, and he was so excited because he was about to leave for the math challenge, and he was explaining where it was, and it was like, it's really long. I think it's like a 30-minute bus ride. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's, over at the services building. So he thought it was really far away, but it was pretty close. But congratulations to that team. And then right after that, I headed over to Mabel Pageant, where I read for the Young Authors Week, thanks to the 2nd grade teacher, Melissa O'Neill. Appreciate that. Had 2 really good tour guides, Cole and Marcus, a couple of 5th grade baseball players. I got to visit 3 classes and read to them, answered some school board questions, some random questions from some 5th graders. No, I don't know the president. I can't even remember all the random questions, but Dr. Davidson did touch on this, and I read to 2 of the self-contained classrooms, and your heart goes out to the students and you just are so appreciative of the teachers and the staff that are in those classrooms every day. And I'm so thankful that we have them because the students need them. We need them as a district. And so I reiterate Dr. Davidson's challenge. If you want to see what happens on our campus from a day-to-day basis in any of our classrooms, do it. And then finally, this is my first spring break since 2009 because of my kindergartners got spring break next week. So we'll see. I don't think it's going to be quite the same as my last spring break, but hopefully all the students have a nice, fun spring break and be safe and be back in school on Monday.
Ms. Wallace.
Thank you. I was able, since our last meeting, to go to Scott Libby Elementary and Palm Valley Elementary, which are both very near and dear to my heart. My kids attended Scott Libby Elementary for the last 6 years and are at Palm Valley for the first time this year. So I was able to see the inside workings of the 2 schools that I feel the closest to and know the most about personally. So both were, as expected, fantastic schools doing fantastic things, and had a really nice time at both of those, hearing from the different students. I really enjoyed hearing from the EL students at Scott Libby Elementary. That was a really nice presentation from them on the importance of our EL programs and everything that they're learning there. And then at Palm Valley, it was really nice having a tour from the students. That wasn't something I've seen before, and I really enjoyed having that one-on-one time with the student to show me around the school. And it was a really nice experience as well. That is all I have to share this time. So.
Ms. Moran?
Yes, for my board report tonight, I have two items. The first that I was able to attend was the Scott Libby School Showcase, which I will echo was an excellent time. One of the highlights for me was learning more about the efforts that they are putting into their implementation of Leader in Me. This is their first year as a Leader in Me school. And so it was very encouraging to see and hear the positive impact that that is having on their campus culture, the staff and the students, both in and out of the classroom. The second item that I would like to talk about tonight is the Arizona Auditor General spending reports that recently came out for the fiscal year 2024. So since I'm a numbers person, I couldn't wait to dig into these, but I did resist the temptation of putting my own deck together to present to you all. But what I am going to do is just highlight two things in particular. So what the Auditor General does is they look at how each of our districts, as well as the state, are spending our funds. And two of the primary buckets that I think are the most indicative of success for a school district are the percentage of money that's going to the classroom and the percentage of money that's going to administrative costs and the administration of the classroom. So you want to have more money going in the classroom because that's really why we're all here. Although you need to have some money going to administration because they need to be organizing and leading the district as well. So I'm going to start by talking about classroom spending. So in the state of Arizona, the average classroom spend is 68.6%. So keep that in mind. And then I'm going to talk about some of our neighboring districts. So in the Avondale Elementary School District, classroom spending is 67.5%. So a little bit less than the state average. Buckeye Elementary School District, 67.8, pretty much on par with Avondale. Liberty actually spends a little bit more. They're at 70.8%. And just for comparison, because this is a close district to us, I also threw in the high school district, Agua Fria High School. Now, they really do have a different model, so it's not exactly apples to apples, but they spend 65.1% in the classroom. Litchfield Elementary School District, number 79, I am proud to report, spends 72.8% of our funds in the classroom, which is 4% higher than the Arizona average and 2%, more than 2% higher than our peers on our neighboring districts. So I'm really proud of that. The flip side of that coin is your non-classroom spending. And one thing that's in that non-classroom spending is the administration costs. So I'll go through that same comparison. In the state of Arizona, the average administration spend is 10.3%. Avondale, 12.5%. Buckeye, 12.1%. Liberty, 11%. Agua Fria High School District, 11.4%. Litchfield Elementary School District's administration spend is 8.9%. 2% lower than the average and over 1% lower than the state average. So what this tells me is that this is a clear illustration, as published by the Auditor General of the great state of Arizona, of the sound fiscal policy and decisions made by this board, as well as the administration of this district. I'm hopeful that we can continue to respectfully and professionally collaborate to make decisions in the best interest of student success while being fiscally responsible. So on that note, I will close with lyrics from Guster's Keep It Together. Can we rise? Can we all get along right? Can we miss the storm that sucked the whole world in? So far away from everyone, and everything starts today. Keep it together.
Thank you. Mr. Mikes?
So my first thing, I am a representative of the Litchfield board for the elementary foundation that we have that helps raise money and give back to the teachers and students of the district. And I just wanted to kind of give a shout out because they just got done approving over $11,000 in mini teacher grants that teachers could apply for. That's just for the spring. And it was a total of 15 grants, and they were at 9 different sites. So that's some great money getting straight into the teachers' hands. And so we appreciate that for them. As far as some other stuff that I did, I was a guest reader at Litchfield Elementary, Dreaming Summit, Mabel Paget. I had a great time reading to the kids, 5th grade, kindergarten, 1st grade. They had a 3rd grade class in there. I'll tell you, if you're ever having a bad day, go ahead and schedule a reading with a kindergarten class, and it will change things around for you really quick. And so I appreciate being invited into that. And it's a smooth operation no matter what school I go to visit for it. Everybody's so wonderful when I go. For the site visits, had a chance to see Scott Libby on for Valentine's, and yes, Mr. Owens was there too. Palm Valley and Rancho Santa Fe, and it's just incredible. It really is to see what happens at the schools. There's good work, but to actually see what's happening and see how they take the data and see how the kids are involved in their learning process and see the buy-in from the teachers and the communication from the administrators. It's remarkable. And going off of what Dr. Davidson said as well, I mean, I welcome anybody to go visit these schools to see really what's happening. If you have any doubt, I am sure one visit will impact you greatly on that. And then the last thing, I had a great opportunity to visit Dr. Stone. Got a chance to go over and see the facilities for support services. Kind of all the behind the scenes stuff, transportation, maintenance, food service, purchasing, etc. All the stuff there, and it was extremely impressive. The whole process of everything, how it's laid out, how everything's streamlined, the continuous conversations and thoughts as far as how to constantly make things better. I really appreciated that. And so I appreciate everybody in that area too, that kind of is in the background that helps make things, operate within our schools. So that was a great experience as well. And so that's it for me.
Okay, this was kind of a busy month, actually. Since our last regular meeting, I volunteered all day long at Rancho Santa Fe for their spring pictures, which I have to tell you, it's like the best day to volunteer. To see what the kids want to wear for picture day, it's so funny because you have the super fancy kid and the kid that just rolled out of bed and everywhere in between, right? So it's just super fun to see them and what they choose to wear and how they show their different personalities. And you're not doing anything serious. It's just fun time with the kids. So I really like doing that and spending the day doing that with all the kids, and that you really get to see everyone that day. So it's really fun thing to do. I also was able to read at Litchfield Elementary School and at Mabel and Dreaming Summit. I really appreciate the schools that invite us to come do that. It's super fun. It's a reminder to us that are on the board, like, this is why we're here. These kids here, these are the reason that we do this job, and they matter more than anybody. So we need to make sure that we are doing the best we can to make sure that they have what they need. I enjoyed getting, specifically, I'm going to give a shout out to Miss Landon, who actually spoke earlier today. I got to read to her class. Mostly she was my daughter's 2nd grade teacher when we moved to Corte Sierra. And so it was fun to go and read. She's at a new campus now, and getting to read in her classroom. She posted a picture of my daughter in 2nd grade, and I was like, wow, she's so little there. But the kids were so excited to get to hear from somebody. Like, my daughter had this teacher, and so they were all excited to be like, oh, that's so neat. And they were very excited to see a picture of my daughter. So, and her classroom was super purple. So apparently she stayed with the purple thing. But it was just a fun thing to do. School showcases, I also attended Scott Libby, Rancho, and Palm Valley. Scott Libby, also near and dear to my heart. My kids went there for many years. So I like going to see what's happening there and how that's evolved and changed over time. I appreciate the conversations that we had with Principal Fox there. I think that was one of the best conversations we had in a while, actually, with Principal. I think it was good for all of us to be able to sit down and kind of hear what's happening on that campus and be able to work together on some stuff. I also appreciated our visit at Rancho always. They know how to bring the celebration and the fun and get you excited to be there. And that's not just a show for us board members. I promise you, they do that like every week on Friday. When you come, they've got all the kids out there every day with little signs getting them excited. And specifically on Fridays, they've got their whole big kids out there that are on their spirit team, getting everybody pumped to be there. So that is just an all the time thing. Everybody that comes there loves to be there and is excited to be there. And you can't help but be infected with that positivity and spirit when you walk on that campus. So as well as when we went to Palm Valley, I appreciated that as well. Thank you to Principal Hill for having not just the regular kids that we talked to. It was nice to have our kids from the self-contained class that was there, as well as our kids that are in gen ed and our TA kids. And we got to hear from a lot of different students, and it was just not your typical kids that we talked to. And I like that because it's real and it's honest. When you have a kid say, I'm sorry, I didn't actually do that. It's like, oh, but see, that's real. That's a real kid here, not just your kid that does everything all the time. And they're going to always have the right answer. So I appreciated that. Thank you to those sixth graders that came and shared with us their experiences of what it's like to be having this school become a K-8 that was not before. They were very honest with us about their thoughts about it, and I appreciate that. I also had multiple meetings with Dr. Davidson. We're, always working to plan the future meetings and what we're trying to keep up with and know. And he's very good at staying in contact with all of us board members and making sure that we know what we need to know. And I appreciate that as well. Yeah, that's pretty much it, but it was a lot. I felt like it was a lot of things. I will not be at our next board meeting. And so I have asked board member Moran to run the meeting because she has been a president before, so she can make sure it goes smoothly in my absence. But I will make sure the agenda is not crazy full of stuff before you have to do that. She says it's gonna be a 30-minute meeting. When Danielle ran it for me last time, it was like 17 minutes or something. So you've got a time to beat now, apparently. So with that, yeah, that's all I've got. But thank you very much, guys, for everything that you've done. And thank you for all the schools that let us come see them this month. It was a lot. As far as the reports from the administrators, again, I recommend people to read them. They are great ways to know what's going on in our schools. And as everybody has said today, please go see our schools. Go get a tour. Go take Dr. Davidson up on it and go see our schools. You will not be disappointed. You will have a newfound respect for everything that our staff goes through every day. And if you talk to our students, you will be blown away by what they are doing. So thank you to the administrators for the reports that you gave us. With that, if so, Mr. Owens wants to make a motion.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, never mind.
I'll second though.
With the motion from Mr. Mikes and a second from Mr. Owens, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
I'm also yay. Motion passes. Thank you guys for joining us. This meeting is